Tell us anything about any of your operations, or just giggle every time I ask you a question?
Decline to answer because I honestly believe my answer might tend to incriminate me.
I thought only little girls giggled, Mr. Giancana.
And that, of course, was a great exchange between, just before he was Attorney General, Bobby Kennedy, and Sam Giancana, mob boss in Chicago. And Bobby, of course, was going after the mob at that time in organized labor, in unions, because organized crime was in the unions, and it was a racket. But why do I bring that up? Because we're going to be talking about Mexico today, where the government and the cartels seem to be in the same bed together. And my special guest, of course, is Blake Richards, who is in Mexico. And of course, you know Blake from his time as a supporter at Universal Ostrich Farms. He has been terrific in his support. And when we come back, we're going to be talking to Blake and what he is observing in Mexico. And of course, his thoughts on what's happening at Universal Ostrich Farms as well. We will be right back.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
Your home is your castle. We're calling on the government to introduce and immediately pass the Stand on Guard law.
But we also need to resolve to resist.
Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. No. We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yeah, we're doing it live. And this morning, we're joining my good friend, Blake Richards, who is... Blake, where exactly are you in Mexico? So I want to get it right.
Okay, well, first off, David, we have become friends, but my last name is Roberts. But that's
Did I say
okay.
Richard? I'm sorry.
Worse. Yeah, that's okay.
I
I
just
get called worse.
My apologies.
I call you David. You call me Blake.
I have been running around this morning. We will never do that.
All good, my friend. All good.
No, it's terrible actually, but it's Blake Roberts. You know, when I first started corresponding with you, I was getting you mixed up with Blake Edwards, the director. So
that happened for years growing up.
Okay, Blake, my apologies. And so whereabouts are you in Mexico, Blake?
I'm in Puerto Vallarta, and our neighborhood is Versailles. So we're kind of, if anybody knows Vallarta, we're halfway between Old Town, like a half an hour walk to Old Town and a 45-minute walk to the airport. I think so.
Okay, so I was looking at your Facebook material here, and I'm just going to show a couple of minutes of it as you.
So just a follow-up. I decided to get out of the line at Lacomer. If you missed the video I just did, I'm walking back home to our condo. We're about 5 minutes from Costco. Costco's not open. The burnt out cars are there, but as I just said in the last video, life is getting back to normal. The Ministry of Transport put out something yesterday that said cabs and buses were back running. Again, they wouldn't have put that out if, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, they wouldn't have put that out if they weren't in communication with the cartel. And we're done. We sent a message that we can shut the city down, and we did. But the cartel relies upon this city. They keep tourists safe. Been coming here for over 20 years. I could not feel safer than I do in this town. And we walk from Old Town to our neighborhood in Versailles, as I said, which is...
So this, let me get you back here. Very interesting to me, Blake. What you're saying here, of course, is that this was the cartels showing the government just how powerful it can be. So I don't know if you specifically or explicitly say it in your commentary here, but a lot of people are saying it. Is the government of Mexico in bed with the cartels to the point where they do the cartels' bidding?
And again, I don't begin to pretend I know how things work. I don't. But I don't know if I would say they do their bidding. I would say my opinion has always been they more work with the cartel. They pick their battles. The cartel is very powerful, and they know when to push back and when not to push back. It's my opinion.
Well, certainly the president of Mexico has recently said that she doesn't want to use violence against the cartels, but the cartels have no problem exhibiting violence. But you're saying it's almost like they protect the area you're in, and it sounds like almost like Al Capone offering protection to the folks in Chicago so he can keep gangland peace. But you're saying it's a safe place to visit.
Yeah, that's maybe a good analogy. It is. I mean, like I said, my wife introduced, she's been coming here for 35 years. I've been coming here for about 23. We will walk from Old Town to our condo. We'll make that 40-minute walk at 3:00 in the morning and feel perfectly safe. And where we live, we don't live high. We have a little condo in a little Mexican neighborhood. You know, we walk half an hour to the opulence of the marina where the Dennis Washington's yacht is, but we walk half an hour into the poorest part of well, not the poorest parts, but some pretty poor parts of Mexico, because we love the Mexican people, and it takes us out of our rush of lives at home, and you're safe. You're safe here. And my belief has always been the cartel keeps it safe here. They make loads of money here. There's nightclubs in the Malecon. Anybody come sure they know. I'm sure those are all run by the cartel. I've seen back in the day, a few years ago, you know, you go to a nightclub at home, and if a young punk is obnoxious, I've seen them get pummeled by bouncers. Here in Vallarta, more than once, I've seen a stupid American or a stupid Canadian kid, 20 years old, get walked out of the nightclub by a behemoth Mexican, and they're, hey, amigo, you got to go. Come back tomorrow. Okay, you got to go. And it's all friendly. They're safe here. And with what happened with the cartel leader, he got killed, whether it was by the Americans or the Mexican government or both. And like my wife had a good point. She said the cartel had to do something. They had to. So they came in here, they lit up cars on fire, and they said, look what we can do. And last night, the transportation minister sent out a communique that said the buses and the cabs are running today. They wouldn't said that. In my opinion, they wouldn't do that unless they communicate with the cartel, and the cartel says we're done. Back to business. And again, all these people, all these cars were burnt, horrible, yes, but the locals, they were pulled out of the cars and then they were lit on fire. They didn't hurt anybody. The Oxos, the Oxo's like a 7-Eleven chain here. It's a multinational. They went after those because I think they were sending a message to the multinationals. They ran into the stores, get out, boom, they lit on fire. They weren't killing anybody. Anyway, this is my soapbox.
Well, it almost sounds to me like you're describing Cuba in the pre-Castro years under Batista, where it was a haven for foreigners, largely Americans, to go down and gamble, and there was prostitution available. There was every vice imaginable, but you were safe. However, you know, that certainly had consequences on the average person in Cuba who was impoverished and stayed that way, and didn't really benefit from the gambling and from the crime syndicate. So you're not saying that this is an ideal situation, just that it's a safe place to go.
Yeah, and I get your analogy, and pre Justin Trudeau's dad was before my time. Oh, I digress. Fidel. So I can't necessarily, I don't know what it was like that way, but you know, Mexico is a poor country. The gap between the wealth and the poor is pretty extreme. But they seem to look after each other. I don't begin to understand everything.
But it's safe. You're saying right now it's over. It's
over.
The violence is over. Did you see the cartel people wearing combat uniforms, essentially the same as the actual Mexican army? It was difficult to tell the two apart.
Yeah, not where we were, because again, we're about 5 miles from Old Town. Like there was Costco's 5 minutes from me. It was there was some cars burning, but we weren't. More of it was in Old Town, which is a half an hour walk. I did talk to one friend, Canadian gal from Calgary who lives here now. She was down at a beach called La Coretta, which is right near the pier, and they were walking to lunch, and people started freaking out because an OXO was on fire, and that would freak you out. And then people started running, and people were screaming, the cartel is going to start shooting people. So she said they ran into Dee's coffee shop and they bunkered down for a few hours because it was a natural fear, right? So for some of the people, it was terrifying. And yes, they did see, there was members of the cartel, and there's videos everywhere. I'm not seeing anything anybody else did. They're all dressed in black, faces covered, just like the RCMP were at the Universal Ostrich Farm. I know I digress. Pulling people out of the cars and doing what they're doing. So yeah, at first glance, it'd be hard you could get them confused with the Mexican military or the local police for sure.
Well,
Sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
No, that's it's incredible. But there's been some talk, of course, in the Trump administration, talking about post Venezuela that maybe there should be some further U.S. action in Cuba or perhaps Mexico. There's even Mexicans. I don't pretend that this is a huge part of the population that would welcome an American intervention because of the cartel. Do you think a U.S. intervention, whether it's invasion or occupation or regime change, do you think that would be a positive or a negative phenomena for the country?
Out of my pay grade, not my place to say. Because I can't speak for the poor Mexicans. So I can't speak for them, for the poor ones. The Mexicans that I know that are moderately to comfortable or more, I don't think they'd want anything to do with the U.S. here. They're not fans of Donald Trump for the most part. I'm paraphrasing. And I'd be afraid of it because right now it's safe. I think if the states started flexing their muscles here, it would get ugly before it got better, my personal opinion.
Well, I spent a little bit of time in Central America, and yeah, I understand the attitude is always we don't really want U.S. intervention, although of course that has been the norm for the past 100 years. That has happened repeatedly. Not in Mexico in quite a while, but I find your take on this very interesting because at the same time, we're saying that this is a very unusual political situation where the government and the cartel seem to have a relationship. And I think I can't see that as being a good thing for democracy, if it really exists in Mexico or not. But I think what you're saying is that Canadians shouldn't be afraid to travel to Mexico because their dollars are helping the average Mexican. Would that be safe to say?
Dollars are helping the average Mexican. And if I could get on my soapbox and just go back a little bit, because I'm a moderate. I consider myself a centrist. I appreciate a lot of what the United States is doing, but I can't stand Donald Trump and how he's doing it is vitriol. But we have to understand that our way of life isn't necessarily everybody's way of life. And the cartel is so powerful here. If you're the president of Mexico and you come in and you say, I'm ending the cartel, the mess that you create might be untenable for the people, right? So you try to work with the cartel, maybe try to broker deals and say, here's what, you do this, we're going to do this, be a middle ground. I go back, sorry, soapbox again. I think back to Operation Desert Storm. I was watching when they were going into Iraq, and there was whoever the analyst was. He said, this is a generational war. We are starting something here that's never going to end because it's different over there and it's different over here. So, but yes, it's safe here. Please come spend your money, tip well. Don't barter too much on the beach because these people work their asses off and they're really good people.
Well, I think that's that's a point that most Canadians can get. If you're, it's a complex situation, and we're not going to be solving it either way. But so I think really what I'm hearing from you is that what I saw in the mainstream media yesterday, and what I saw from people, journalists who were independent journalists who were reporting on the scene, I think both of them really were accurate. There were two versions of the same event, but both versions were correct. You were safe, but Costco was being burnt down. There were cars on fire. It did look for a while like there was some kind of crazy civil war going on.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't know for sure, right? But honestly, within 4 or 5 hours, the light started going on in my head. Like, oh, I see what they're doing. It's because Costco didn't burn down. They built cars. They burnt cars at Costco, right? Yeah, okay. I filmed at Costco yesterday, and I was guilty of being a little sensational, but they didn't burn Costco. The grocery store beside Costco, the big grocery store, is open today. People lined up a mile deep. It's back to COVID days when people are trying to get their toilet paper. So, yeah, I mean, I know that I saw some of the independent journalists, you did too as well, and respectfully, and again, I did the same thing, I guess, with Costco, but there was one fellow, he had in his post, pray for us. He's Canadian. He had pray for us. Well, okay, that's pouring it on a little thick. And if you just come back to your resort, you'd have been fine. Yes, he was maybe putting himself at risk where he was out filming, right? But it was pretty early on clear what was happening, that it wasn't a threat to humans, it was a threat to the economy.
So I know you're going to tell me it's above your pay grade to make this assessment, but where do you think Mexico needs to go? Is this an acceptable situation where you have government that is supposedly elected? They have a pseudo democracy in Mexico. It's highly corrupt. We know that it's been corrupt for many years. But is it acceptable, in your view, to have the cartel as a partner in the government? Or is there any way out of this besides a hugely violent upheaval, which I don't think is something that's not going to happen?
Above my pay grade, and not my place to say. Yeah, and it's not my place to say. You know what? That's for the Mexicans. We have a residency. We're as planted here as it can get. We come back to Canada, but it's not my place to say. That's for the Mexicans to decide. But I think if they ever went to battle with the cartel, the suffering on this generation wouldn't be good. The people here and now would probably say leave it the way it is my guess. But not my place.
Yeah, I think that's probably exactly what the advice would be. But it's certainly tragic to some degree. Yeah. Which probably another subject we share, and Blake, and of course, talking about tragic. You've been to Mexico quite a while now, and but I know you've been keeping tabs on what's been happening at Universal Ostrich Farms in Edgewood, BC, and I was absolutely amazed a couple of weeks ago now. I think it was literally 2 weeks ago when we learned that an organization I had never even heard of called the Canada Agricultural Review Tribunal decided that this $10,000 fine, which had been levied by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency against the farm, was revoked because the CFIA had not properly communicated their messages and their information, their orders from the day they arrived at that farm, that they were doing things via email, not by speech. And of course, the first thing I thought when I heard this was, wow, is this not only the first really good piece of news, unless you consider, the temporary lifting of the call order by the Supreme Court, which turned out to be not really good news.
It was a stall.
That was bogus. That was a stall. But here was a government body siding with the ostrich farm. And my first thought, of course, was, well, holy crap. If that was improper or illegal, if the communication wasn't right from the beginning, was anything right about this occupation, this invasion, this massacre and this incredibly inept evacuation of the farm. And I was there in spirit, let's say, from the beginning. I covered this. I interviewed Katie probably 24 times over the period. Talked to people on the ground every day. Watch the footage that people like you and others who were there were putting out on your social media. So I've followed this. I've been following it now for a year.
If more reporters were like you and Drea Humphrey, maybe the government would have been stopped.
Well, I think so, but
like you, David.
But my thought, Blake, was that, hey, this opens the door for a lawsuit, and of course, as you know, the neighbor of Katie and her mom, who is a relative, she's Katie's aunt, they have filed suit because the CFIA invaded their property, decided to build a road one day without even asking, did not seek permission, didn't want permission. That's their right. We're going to build a road, and you're going to like it. They weren't even allowed to harvest their garlic crop. They had to get permission to go into their house. Absolutely outrageous. So they filed suit. And Katie, a day later, writes on her Facebook, "We're next. We're coming next." And of course, that is coming soon. I can't say exactly when they're going to file that lawsuit, but they have made their intentions known, and they're just getting their ducks in order. I hate to use that stale euphemism, but they're getting things in order so they can guarantee this is going to be a successful case. So, what were your thoughts when you heard that this agricultural tribunal had overturned the CFIA and essentially rebuked the CFIA? What were your thoughts on that?
I was shocked. I was over the moon happy. And then every once in a while, it kind of comes back in my head. Government's not going to care. Government is going to crush. But let's not let that happen. Let's let this be the beginning of something for Katie. We always said, so many of us at the farm said Katie is going to take down the CFIA when this is over, however this ends, and they're not stopping. And I get frustrated sometimes because I watch stuff on Facebook that Katie's putting out. It's the same stuff, right? But there's stuff going on in the background that we don't know. You know more than I do. Katie's very spiritual. Her and Karen, they believe in God and everything. A lot of that is, and I'm not there, so I get a little frustrated. And I want to hear them say, "This is what's happening, and this is what we're doing." And I want to go, "Yes." How do we help? And this kind of stuff starts coming, and don't stop. And we're with her, and people following on social media. Do not let this government do what they did, and let's not let them get away with it. And let's support these people, because this is bigger than the ostrich farm. This is bigger than the ostrich farm. So as much as we all love the ostrich farm and we bleed, we care about those birds and that family, they are not just fighting for themselves. They are fighting for farmers and our rights as Canadians. And as you know, I don't necessarily I consider myself a Canadian these days because of what this government did. And maybe Katie and them can get this back. So, yeah.
Well, that's certainly the same message that Katie and her mom are always saying. It's not just about our farm. It's not just about us or one family. It's about Canadians across the country. And I think one of the proudest moments for me during this whole thing was when I had Jerry Ritz on my show a number of times. He's a very good friend from my days working at the Hill. I knew him when he was in opposition as a member of Parliament for Battleford, Saskatchewan. I knew him as the agriculture minister very well. And Jerry was tremendously supportive of the farm from day one, and very, very critical of CFIA and the Carney government, and not just in a political way. He was saying that this is no way for a government agency to behave. They have crossed the line. They've moved way past the line on this. They're out of control. They're rogue, and it was nice to be able to introduce Jerry to Katie, because Jerry had such incredible respect for what she was doing and time for what she was doing, and that was a great moment for me. But I really believe that if this farm can be successful in this potential lawsuit, now it hasn't happened yet, so I can't say it's happening, but potentially, if this goes through, I think this would be a victory against government overreach and a warning that you can't justify whatever the hell you want to do to people just because we're in the government. I mean, can you imagine if the military behaved that way? And I'm ex-military. If I had waltzed around in my uniform and said, hey, I'm an officer, I can do whatever the hell I want because I'm in the military and you're not, you're just a civilian. This is exactly the way the RCMP now behaves, exactly the way the CFIA behaved during that whole exercise. Like everybody else is second-class citizens in this country. They're elites. They're special. They take their orders from the government. And I'm just doing this because the government told me to do it. I'm just following orders, so the hell with you. I think we heard that before at the Nuremberg trials with people saying, I was just following my orders. And of course, ultimately, that means absolutely nothing except the moral abdication of people who cannot judge or assess right from wrong anymore. So do you think if this goes through, if Katie and Karen are successful, will this send a clear signal in this country that government overreach can be contained? I don't say we've won. It's going to be the victory of all victories, but it does send a signal that ordinary Canadians can fight back and have some degree of success.
It would be the beginning of that. And you know what? I heard the term government overreach 1,000 times. I've heard it once at the farm, and I jumped onto that phrase at the beginning. I'm tired of it. I'm honest with you. It started with government overreach. The CFIA was overreach. It's tyranny. It's bullying. It's way bigger than government overreach. What happened at that farm? It was an attack on the Canadian people. It was an attack, and you know, I yelled. You talk about the RCMP and the Nuremberg. I was at that yellow tape, yelling at those guys and gals, calling them Hitler soldiers, and then I'd back off on it. And you know what? Maybe that's a bad analogy. Maybe that's disrespectful to the Jewish people. Okay, you know what? I thought about this the last 2 days, or the last day. How are the RCMP different from the cartel? You formed a deal with the government. Like you're covered in black, and you're protecting the people one day. You're our police force one day. You're attacking us the next. That's what the RCMP does. And I don't call them the RCMP anymore. I call them GCMP, Government of Canada Mounted Police. Put the whole royalty thing aside with what's happening with the former Prince Andrew, the dirtbag of the Epstein buddy. Put that aside. There's nothing royal about royal anyway. I'm talking about that. But let's take the royal out of the RCMP. Let's call them for what they are. And this isn't an insult. This is a fact. They are the Government of Canada Mounted Police. I firmly believe they should be rebranded. Let's be transparent, because people do not understand that this police force is not here to protect us. I have that police force in my city in Kelowna. They have a contract with our municipality to protect us, to protect the city's bylaws and traffic and crime. But if the government of Canada said, crush Kelowna, that's what they'll do. They are the Government of Canada Mounted Police. And I learned that. No disrespect to the individual officers, because I'm not painting them all with that brush. Most of them are good people, cowards, perhaps, that they didn't say, no, we're walking away like Katie was begging them to. But it's the Government of Canada Mounted Police. Let's call it what it is.
Well, I find that comparison you made between the RCMP and the cartel to be absolutely chilling. But at the same time, I can't argue with that, because that's exactly what I've been saying. And, you know, when Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre criticized the RCMP, I think it was just around Christmas time, 2025. And he said that the RCMP was in the pocket of the Trudeau administration. He wasn't going to go any further than that. He just said, well, they were clearly in Justin Trudeau's pocket. He didn't even say that, well, and they're still in Mark Carney's pocket. And he made no reference, of course, to the ostriches. He never did during the whole ordeal. He would not refer to the word ostrich during that whole time. Thank God there was a local MP who did. Scott Anderson did an admirable job, certainly compared to his later when that file came up. But even insofar as Pierre Poilievre criticized the RCMP for being too political under Justin Trudeau, he was completely crucified for that, eviscerated by that. But how dare you criticize our national police force when all he was saying was the obvious? And if you cover the RCMP long enough, as I have, you find out that all they do is repeat the talking points of the government. And for the last almost 11 years now, it's been a Liberal government under Trudeau or Carney, and they will do whatever they need to do to reinforce those talking points. And I don't really want to get in too deep with this, but I have written extensively over the last week about what happened, of course, in Tumbler Ridge with this trans shooting that the RCMP did nothing to prevent, including on the day they were so afraid of misgendering this individual that they issued a warning that, the kind that pops up on your smartphones and annoys the hell out of you, describing this guy as a female in a dress. And this to me was once again the RCMP paying more attention to woke politics, to the government of the day, especially the Liberal one, than they are to public safety or the needs of ordinary Canadians. And they did it again. For me, it was once again, there they go again, just like they were at the Ostrich Farm, backing up the CFIA, refusing to arrest people for animal cruelty, refusing to do anything in support of the people at that farm, including on the night of the slaughter. I mean, this was potentially, this could have been mayhem and bedlam for the people there. Somehow they survived the shooting gallery that went on, but there were no precautions. The RCMP did nothing to protect those people who couldn't even get off the farm. They were trapped there. And yet the RCMP did nothing to ensure public safety on that day either, just like they did in the Tumbler Ridge. They did nothing to protect public safety because they're more concerned about politics. And I tell you, I'm fed up. And when you made that analogy to the Mexican cartel, they say, maybe that's a little strong, but no, I don't think it is. It's like they're partners with the government and they'll do whatever the hell they need to do to keep that partnership going. So
I shared during the Ostrich Farm, I shared a letter that a friend who's a member sent me, and I posted it, and it was about all his concerns with the RCMP, how disillusioned he is where he works. And he laid out some things, and a lot of people jumped on it and agreed with it. And a lot of people, you made that up. No, that's a member from the RCMP that contacted me who can't put his name forward as much as he'd like to. And then 2 other retired members contacted me. Sooner or later, a member of the RCMP that was involved with that ostrich farm is going to be disillusioned to the point that they step forward. Sooner or later, it's going to happen, and we'll hear more, but hopefully.
Well, I think it's been an ordeal. You were there as a supporter for so long. And when are you coming back to Canada, Blake?
March 21st.
Okay.
I'll be back. And I work when I'm gone. Everybody knows what I do for a living. I don't say too much on Facebook now because my social media has never been focused about that because I have my clients and things. But I work when I'm gone. But I'll be at that farm. I'll be back at the farm within a week of getting there because I feel a connection to that place. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on today. I can hear the wildlife in the background there, and we've got about 3 feet of snow here in Ottawa. It's the worst part of the year for me. I hate February. I wish I was down there with you. Maybe someday I can get out of here. But,
well, it's safe if you do come here. It is perfectly safe, I assure you.
Well, that is so good to know. That is good to know. And I'm glad you were safe yesterday, Blake, and you can come home safely to Canada. By spring, you'll be coming. Yeah, you're arriving on the first day of spring. So,
It's been
Great.
spring all year long in Kelowna too. I haven't missed winter. Even if I'd stayed home, Kelowna's been kind of blessed with pretty easy winter. So
Yeah, yeah, it certainly has been. The farmers
Ottawa,
been the
your
same
weather
way.
is worse. Your weather is worse, and you're surrounded by politicians. It's just I don't know.
Well, that's
It's
true. That
Ottawa.
makes it not only physically cold but emotionally cold. It's a
Yeah.
very cold city that way, and so thank you so much, Blake, for joining me today. And like I say, we'll talk later about a number of other things. Nice to re-engage with you, and Godspeed. And we'll see you when you get back to Canada.
I appreciate you so much, David. So many people at that farm appreciate you. Like I said, if we had reporters like you, who knows what would have not happened. So,
Well, I appreciate you saying
thanks,
that,
Brett.
because believe me, there's still people out there who think I was crazy to spend as much time as I did on this story, but I just tell them go to hell.
Yeah, we're all crazy. Nothing wrong with being crazy.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day in Mexico.
Thanks.
And enjoy the rest of your time down there. And we'll be talking to you again.
Take care, my friend. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And it's always nice to have Blake on the show. He's down in Mexico, and it's been fantastic getting to know Blake over the time. But I want to share something with you here, because and I'm going to do this better tomorrow. But I just got this book in the mail today. Can we see that? Yeah, this is The Sound of Silence, Forever Loved, and Sage, written by Sage. And this was really, really special. This is an autographed copy, and I want to read the letter. This is a 9-year-old girl who wrote and illustrated this book, and I've asked her mother for information as to whether or not you can get this book online. But here's the letter she wrote to me with this book. It says, "My name is Sage and I am 9. I wrote this story and illustrated it as a tribute to the ostriches and their family that lost 35 years of life that night. Their heartbeats and beautiful faces were murdered in the most humane way. I will tell their story and wait for the day the silence ends and justice is served. Sage." Now, I also want to read. This is an email. I'm just going to read it to you from a Facebook page. And I just notified Sage's mother, Beth, that and it's Sage Lynn, by the way, is the author. She says, "Hi, my daughter and I love watching your videos, especially the ones with Katie and the ostrich farm. It's so incredibly sad what happened to them. We visited the farm in October when they were still alive and fell in love with their beautiful faces. It shattered our hearts that they were killed, and in such a horrible way. We went back on the 9th, and my daughter and son brought 400 flowers to lay down for the 400 ostriches. My daughter, who is 9, wrote a short story and illustrated it. She would like to send you a signed copy once it's published, as you were part of the journey and still are." And she asked me for my mailing address, and signed Beth and Sage. And I'm just so incredibly touched by that. I'm very, very touched by this. It shows you how caring people can be. And I appreciate the fact that they appreciate that I reported on this story as much as I did, as conscientiously as I did, as comprehensively as I did, because I believed in it, and I still do. And like I say, it's an unfinished story. There's more to come, and I think there's some good news around the corner. I just want to go to my X site here to catch up on a little more news. And, we've always got some stuff here. And by the way, the 2 teachers who were ejected from the Ottawa school system because they refused to celebrate LGBTQ or Pride Month are going to be getting a hearing. And Labor Board to hear case of Ontario teachers who say they were fired for not supporting LGBTQ celebrations. And Matt Alexander, who is the son, says, "Hey, Mr. Polyev, don't forget the Christian teachers fired for standing on their principles when ordered to celebrate LGBTQ with kids. We are in court tomorrow, but you've been silent." Oh, I'm afraid that's very true. Afraid that's very true. And I want to just share a little bit of Dan Dix and his experiences in Mexico yesterday. And let's get to the beginning here.
Our colleagues is down in Puerto Vallarta. Joining us now is CP24 journalist and our web writer extraordinaire, Joshua Freeman, with the latest on the developing story. Josh, I hate to bug you. I'm guessing you're on vacation.
Never try to go.
Mm-hmm.
This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, coming at you here live in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
I am on vacation here. I'm here with a large party, and actually I'm a few kilometers north of Puerto Vallarta at the moment, in a resort area.
Just had the military driving past me, and as I understand it, I should not be around anywhere where the police or the military are.
And Andrew, you actually wouldn't know necessarily that anything was going on where I am,
because they are the target right now. As you can see, there's this whole place is like deserted right now because there's burning cars back there, burning cars right here still smoldering, and the situation is incredibly intense.
Well, you just said that you didn't really know until you started seeing the alerts. What were the alerts?
So I'm in a large party with people spread out at several different resorts. Some people got no messages, but at least one person got a message on their phone saying there's activity in town, police activity. It's best to stay on the premises and not venture out too far.
As I'm sure you've already heard, there was a top drug lord cartel member, El Mencho, who has been killed. I believe there was a $15 million bounty on this man's head, and he is now dead. And that has caused this whole situation to pop off. The place looks like an absolute war zone right now, folks.
But you know, you can tell that something is happening. There's black smoke you can see rising in the distance at several points.
Cartel has been setting up blockades in the streets, stopping cars. A whole bus was set on fire. You've got cartel members who literally look like the military. These guys are serious. These guys mean business. Costco was set on fire. A hospital was under attack. People running for their lives. There was the Guadalajara airport that was under attack.
I know this is a difficult question.
We're going to leave it there because it's fascinating. So I think what from Blake is saying, this, yeah, he confirmed all of this. The Costco, Blake is saying the Costco itself wasn't burning, but the vehicles in the parking lot were set on fire. So obviously the cartel can do whatever the hell it wants, whenever the hell it wants, because they're in bed with the government. And I'm glad to see Pierre Poilievre at least has come out in support of this former Chilliwack school board trustee who had a $750,000 fine levied against him because he doesn't accept trans ideology. He doesn't think there's more than two genders. And Pierre Poilievre writes, "This is insane and Orwellian." You're damn right it is. Governments and kangaroo courts now chill freedom of expression instead of fighting crime, censoring people who dare to speak their minds. Just ask the BC school board trustee who got slapped with a $750,000 fine for saying there are two genders. Enough is enough. Where have I heard enough is enough from lately? We must defend the truth and free speech against these mad censors. Signed here to support free speech. Yes, well, I'm with you on that, Pierre. You bet. We've got to support that. We have got to support that. Now, I'm just going to have a look at my feed here. This is interesting. This is very interesting what's going on. And now Jason Kenney again is trying to link discrimination against Ukrainian Canadians with support for the war in Ukraine now. And now this idiot seems to think World War III might be on the horizon, but let's keep doing it. And keep throwing billions of dollars into this black hole of Kiev for the most corrupt government in Eastern Europe. Yeah. And of course, Mark Carney is lying to you again, lying to you about everything. Interesting. A major fire has destroyed the historic St. Paul Church in Montreal's Sud-Ouest borough. Another church lost to flames in Canada. No. Wow. This isn't anti-Christian at all. Not at all. Rebel News asks, is Mark Carney hiding ties with former Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell? Let's do a thought experiment. Back in 2014, when he was governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney attended a private dinner at Buckingham Palace hosted by Prince Andrew. The palace confirmed Andrews personally paid for the event. It was a gathering of senior bankers and hedge fund executives, an elite closed-door dinner in the middle of a palace. At the time, Prince Andrew was already facing mounting questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier who would later be charged with sex trafficking minors and die in a Manhattan jail cell in 2019 while awaiting trial. Can you believe that was almost 7 years ago now? Epstein's longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, was later convicted in a U.S. court for helping recruit and groom underage girls for abuse. She is now serving a lengthy prison sentence. Fast forward to today, Prince Andrew has just been arrested amid renewed scrutiny connected to the Epstein files. And that palace dinner doesn't look like just another networking event anymore. Then there's the photo. A widely circulated image shows Carney at a British music festival standing alongside Ghislaine Maxwell. Not a distant crowd shot, a clear photograph of social setting. And we, of course, have showed that to you. Yeah. So, lots of criticism about what happened in Mexico yesterday, but you heard this is very interesting. Blacklock's reporter. Bill C9 criminalizes, quote, obstruction, unquote, by protest at any, quote, sacred site, unquote, like purported graveyard of 215 children in Kamloops, BC, regardless of whether graves actually exist. Wow. That's where we are in this country. Well, it's been a whirlwind tour. Thank you for watching today. It's been a pleasure, and I will be back at the usual time tomorrow. We had some, once again, we had some house renovations going on here this morning, but it's so nice to see you all, and I'll be back with more of the news you need to know tomorrow, and thank you. Thank you for sharing this station with your friends and family. Thank you for hitting that like button, because I tell you, we are fighting back in a way I've never had to before, because I'm going to keep this station on the air. I'm going to keep fighting for freedom. I'm going to keep fighting for justice and truth. And I am damn determined to resist this Carney government in any way possible as it encroaches upon our individual freedom. And it will continue to do that, mark my words. I'll be back again tomorrow. Same time, same place. 10 a.m. This has been David Creighton, broadcasting live from our nation's capital in Ottawa. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.